I mean, there's academic improvement, and my school, Puget Sound Community School, also does this thing called the creedo, which is this thing. Basically, we start the year by writing out a sort of rough draft of the creedo. It turns out to be okay. It has some of the things that I really believe in. Then throughout the year, we have 2 interviews, which is where we talk to people, not only people who agree with our beliefs, but people who disagree with them, and just generally people who know how to talk about what they believe in, so that we can learn how to better talk about that. And then we have text studies, which were personally my favorite, where we find a text. It could be a book or a movie or maybe a poem. One of my friends did an album of music that is related to our beliefs, and we write about that. And then there's a third thing, which is a practicum, which we sort of put one of our beliefs into practice. We exaggerate it to an absurd degree to see how that works, or we don't practice it where we can see how that works. And then after each of these things, we write it up, and then we learn about, that sort of illuminates our beliefs. And using all the things we've learned from that, we write the final credo, which is this. And I suppose I'll start now that everyone's here. I want to speak the language of the stars. Once, in 6th or 7th grade, I went with my family on a camping trip in southern Utah, out under the stars on a series of clear nights without a flashlight. Where I might normally have curled up in my sleeping bag with some novel, I lay under the stars, gazing up at what appeared to be, on first inspection, something like diamonds strewn across black velvet. But it wasn't. I watched long enough that I got a sense of vertigo, and I realized I was hanging above a nigh infinite void. I could fall for 100 times my lifetime and not hit anything. My understanding of astronomy took my appreciation of the stars from, oh look, pretty pinpricks of light, to being lost in the sheer size and ancientness of the sky. I told myself I could tell which stars were further away and which were closer. It was exhilarating and terrifying. I knew in theory that I was a small primate existing for a moment in an infinite void, but it never really struck me until that moment. In the city, stars appear at best as a few scattered spots of light, usually hidden by the clouds. But in the southwestern desert, where there is nothing but clear air, I could see the whole wide band of the Milky Way. I could make out the bulge at the center of the galaxy, the attendant stellar nurseries of an ancient black hole larger than comprehension. And in the opposite direction, I could see the thick band of stars between the Earth and the edge of the galaxy. Suddenly I could see a structure where before there was only that random scattering of jewels. I could see the simple thinness of stars when I looked up from the galaxy, through the light years thick surface, rather than along the flattened hurricane where there were so many stars they faded to a collective white at the border of vision. Even in the city, under the smog and light pollution of so many humans living so close together, I can remember the pattern of the stars. They've served as a sort of symbol for me, their sheer scale reminding me that no matter what goes on in my life, nothing I do could possibly disturb them. When they burn out, it will be on their own terms in 100 million years, when they run out of fuel. I am more fragile than the stars. I have depression. It was only diagnosed recently, but it's been around for some time. Depression takes the form of sort of overwhelming apathy. When it shows up, I have no opinions about anything at all. Or rather, I have opinions, it's just that everything looks exactly the same. It all turns into a sort of uniform void, one where everything is terrifying and empty. It's a little like being overwhelmingly tired, and a little like dreading everything, like having stage fright, or suddenly realizing that none of the things that you turn to for comfort are as familiar as you thought they were. Except it's none of those things. It's a mental disorder, an imbalance of chemicals in my brain. It's not permanent. It comes and goes, and sometimes I forget about it for months at a time, but it keeps coming back. Depression keeps bringing to light my own fallibility. I will occasionally, without thinking too deeply, assess myself as a failure. But this is not what I mean. I will assess the world as broken beyond repair. I will look at those who love me and see pity. I will sit under a beautiful sky and feel only the cold burn of an all-consuming hatred. I have to keep reminding myself that those things are not me. My brain is broken, like a cracked lens. Sometimes it reflects things that don't exist. It twists the outside world into something else, according to an agenda devised by pure chance 13.8 billion years ago. That I sometimes see the world as terrifying and lonely is no reflection of the world. It is a reflection of my warped perception. I see only what my brain gives me, and I must interpret things from the mess. Sometimes I have to lie down and sleep until everything goes away because it is all too much. Sometimes I will cry for no reason at all, and there is no shame in that. My mind, my perception, my subjective experience is composed of patterns I do not understand. They occur above and around and behind me, and sometimes they get the best of me. I've taken steps to get my brain under control, a prescription for antidepressants, and I take them because they make the world seem better and less hidden behind shaded funhouse mirror lenses. But at the same time, I have to wonder why. I favor one pattern in my brain over another, trying to kick and claw and put the world back how I want it, if only in the 6 inches inside my skull. But I can't escape the thought that they're just chemicals. With pills or without, I'm still interpreting a mess of sensations through the same lens, perhaps warped differently, but still certainly distorting my experience. Or rather, my brain is not distorting my experience, but creating it. I'm not a soul or a mind. I am a body. I am meat and bone and electric impulses, pheromones and flesh, simple material things. The fact that I have any subjective experience at all seems like a surreal side effect of my physiology. Subjectively, it's obvious why I try to change the lens through which I see the world. Depression sucks, but try explaining that to the stars. They're used to chemicals and elements bouncing around inside of them, reacting, glowing, and throwing off huge energy through nuclear fusion. A star has no opinions about which elements it fuses, it only keeps fusing. I, on the other hand, have thoughts and feelings about which chemicals swirl around inside of me. The strange thing is, the opinions are themselves chemicals swirling around inside of me. It's an odd, infinite recursion. I like these patterns because they are what I like, and they are what I like because I like them. I really don't know what to make of subjectivity, of whims and feelings. I have to be careful, picking apart the difference between let's go to the park whims and let's hack at my arms until they bleed whims. There's a difference, I'm sure, but I couldn't tell you what it is. I can tell them apart and listen to one over the other, but I don't know how or why I can. I've never tried to hack at my arms, but several times I've had to consciously dismiss it as a bad idea. Whims and feelings are perhaps the least reliable source of anything that I have. They pop up, here feel this way or now do this, and I don't always catch the subtler ones. I prefer to focus on the outside world, the one that is unchanged no matter how I view it. And when I focus on it, I am entranced. It seems to me that the outside world is a hurricane that keeps assembling houses. There are clearly underlying patterns at work that I do not understand, but stars don't need to be understood to keep on glowing. The world keeps going on, and I'm a part of it, so I can keep it going on. Apparently, I can exist without understanding. One morning, last year, I got up and had breakfast, same as usual. I walked down to the bus and got on the bus, same as usual. I took the same bus as usual. I left my usual book at home and spent the bus ride looking out the window, contemplating the buildings. They're not the prettiest buildings. In fact, some of them are old and quite run down. I got to thinking about how they got that way. It's a safe bet they've been in use for a while. Tens of people have lived their years of their lives around these buildings, doing all sorts of different things. I mean, just to build them in the first place, there had to be an architect, there had to be workers, someone to pay for the buildings, and someone to wire them up. Multiply that by the 100 and something buildings I pass on the way to school, and you have tens of thousands of person hours invested in things I spend 20 minutes ignoring every morning and 20 minutes ignoring every afternoon. I was struck by the sheer enormity of it all. Each architect has a story. Every worker has a family. The people who run the stores have regular customers, people they're only just becoming friends with. I was struck by the sheer number of stories that I will never see, all of which are necessary for every moment of my life. I realized that things that had been just buildings moments before were monuments to untold years of human endeavor. When I got off the bus, I felt like I was entering a museum or a cathedral, except busier and therefore even more worrying. Everything seemed vast and terrifying. I could see the ridges of Safeco Field over the buildings, and I realized they implied a million different things. They imply someone has the know-how to engineer things on such a scale, which means that we live in a society with years upon years of academic progress. I know that sports are played beneath them, which implies teams and fans and ancient traditions. I saw the light rail in the distance as well, and I realized that it too spoke of the vastness of the world. Transportation implies places to go. The blue pattern on the side of the train is inspired by Puget Sound, which only exists because of the quirks of a vast tectonic plate intermingling with huge quantities of ice and water. It was all too much, so when I got to school, I sat down in an empty classroom with my head in my hands and tried to lose myself on the floor. It was small and only feet from my face, but I couldn't help but wonder about the provenance of the threads. Normally, I greet my friends in the morning and hang out with them, so a few of them came to check that I was okay. I couldn't really explain it. I was okay. It was just that there was so much more to the world than I had realized. I realized that every single inconsequential moment is the culmination of the entire history of the universe. History is such a big, pompous word. It seems to speak of kings and legends, of wars, earthquakes, and storms, and it does, but that view misses all the details. Life doesn't happen on those big history book scales. Life is, I think, in the small things. It's in moments like puzzling over a Go board, or kisses stolen before departing on a train. It's also the long hours spent on the phone with a friend, or the days spent at home when anything but perfect stillness is too much. Those things are life. Those are the things that build the present out of the past. Each moment is so fleeting and yet so essential. The universe cannot be anything except what it is, because what is synonymous with the universe. I do not like the word destiny, but I can't find a better term for the concept to which I refer. The idea is that from the Big Bang forwards, events have unfolded such that me, right here, speaking these words to you, is the one true ending. This is the present. This is the only possible present until I pause for breath, and it is the past. I, too, am a brief moment. I don't know much. Anything more than utmost humility would be absurd, because I don't even have a clear view of the tiny sliver of the world that I inhabit. Other people see other slivers, ones I have not seen, nor can I ever see. If I am to get even the slightest grasp of this mess, I have to ask everyone and everything for advice. Do not ask me to judge my experiences. I am woefully ignorant. I am new and green and untested. My theories are first drafts. My memory is brief. Ask someone older and wiser, perhaps the stars. If they do not answer, perhaps you are asking the wrong questions.